Hello, beloved You-est listeners. This is Julie. I am so excited for today's interview. This is going to be one that you're going to want to get a really awesome cup of tea, get yourself in a really comfy spot, and you're going to want to soak this in. You may even want to get your notepad because I can guarantee you this is going to be a delicious and very, very enriching conversation. So let me tell you about our beautiful, beloved guest today. I want to introduce you to Asia Andromeda. Asia is the founder of Multidimensional U, a human and planetary rights movement, a metaphysical coaching company, and an engineering hub for the build out of a new Earth, based in higher dimensional coordinates and unity consciousness. She is also a multidimensional engineer, InnerGalactic Shaman, channel, and guide for planetary Wayshowers who want to activate into the next level of their human embodiment and are ready to step into their soul purpose work. I told you this is going to be such a good conversation. Through her online metaphysical coaching program, the Emergence Experience, she has helped clients across the world contribute to a new Earth through the alchemy of their personal transformation. In addition, she's helped them uncover their greater calling and activate incredible innate metaphysical abilities. Since 2015, Asia has led this year-long experiential program for awakening and awakened Wayshowers who need support releasing blocks, clearing density and distortion, and aligning with a higher timeline. After getting her undergraduate degree from William Smith College and her MS from Michigan Tech University, Asia founded several nonprofit organizations and launched a consulting business before her metaphysical awakening catapulted her into alignment with her own greater calling. Her warm, loving approach provides a high vibrational, nurturing container that helps people shift out of destructive patterns that stem from core wounding and the trauma of living in lower density and negative programming. Many of Asia's clients have become powerful, impactful healers and Wayshowers in their own light. Asia has been featured as an expert in the areas of New Earth engineering, inner alchemy, and multidimensional self. Her work has appeared on channels like Higher Self and Higher Self Portal. Asia has also been a guest on podcasts like Love, Service, Wisdom, and Marissa Wepner and Thrive with Morella. She spends time with her family between the northern Rocky Mountains of Montana, the more wild, mystical lands of France, and the many different dimensions of the multiverse. It is such an honor and pleasure. I am beyond excited. I feel like I'm a kid in a multidimensional candy store, and I'm just so honored you're here. Asia, welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Julie. And it's a delight to be here connecting with your audience, which already began as you were reading the bio. I could feel all of this love coming through my field. Some of your listeners probably felt that. And that to me is an indication that you have a following of people who are incredibly heart-centered. So there's a lot of good news that's going to come through my field for them today.
Oh, I'm so excited. I'm like, so for me, as you know, so many questions. I think, and I love hearing that, love to me, living in the heart is the most important teaching for me, for myself. It's transformed my life and it's what I stand for. I believe the access of being your higher self, your You-est comes through really dropping into your heart and that heart energy. And I'm so excited that's coming through you. And I think one of the questions I'd like to start with, because there might be some that frankly are like, what does multidimensional mean? And, maybe we start with some basics and even getting into the 2015 awakening for you and to kind of lay the groundwork of like how this happened, what that means. And then we can like start diving into what you're getting.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think like a lot of people who are listening right now, I had a very normal upbringing. I went to school, I went to college, I went on to grad school. But there was always this undercurrent when I look back. And what's happening already is I'm a channel, right? So you all are beginning to have a conversation with yourselves through me right now. And a lot of this is about giving yourselves permission to live by your most authentic nature, which this is the undercurrent, right? So I was an empath. I didn't I didn't know that when I was a child, but I could feel other people's emotions. I picked up on them. I often was the family peacekeeper, you know, brokering peace, I think is a tagline for many of us. Animals would just come up to me, deer in the woods, birds on my hands, things like this, right? And then as I became an older adolescent, I got really interested in human rights, actually not interested, passionate. I was super inspired. Gosh, I go back to Bono and U2 and some of the, you know, initiatives that they were involved in. And I ended up establishing a chapter of Amnesty International in my high school. And so, you know, you're looking back, I see these threads, this undercurrent. There was something going on that was way bigger than myself, that was, you know, just not totally age appropriate, if you will. I really became passionate by age 15 in human evolution, mainly in paleoanthropology. So I geeked out on, you know, the Australopithecines and like our forebears in terms of, you know, species. And then, gosh, you know, I got into this awakening that started to help me see, wait a minute, there's more going on here. And at the time it felt very new, but as I look back, it was actually a return to what I experienced as a child, and glimmers and glimpses kind of throughout. But, you know, I was good at school. And so I developed kind of a false personality construct based on high achiever and, you know, getting 4.0 in college and all of that. And the mental can really distract us from what's going on in the emotional and the heart center. And so it really took my awakening, which we could probably get into here, which I think is actually really apropos for the times, because it was a huge series of disruptions in my life that precluded me from just carrying on with the status quo, and having to circle back now with hindsight, I see, to what was there all along, but I was too consumed with, you know, a modern material intellectual world to be available for it.
It's interesting how much of your story I completely resonate with. And I think part of what I'm hearing too is, and I'm curious with your awakening, this healing from the overstimulated, like, achiever intellect, because, you know, I know I'm from the same area where you went to school. Like, it doesn't matter if you're Northeast, wherever you grew up, if you grew up with that, most of us so focused on the intellect, on the mind, and it's a whole different land that you're accessing. And so how did you, so you had animals like coming up to you, you felt very sensitive and connected to energy. How did you go from that, being an probably older soul, starting Amnesty like when you were in your teens, being wise beyond your years is what it sounds like way, way, way beyond your years? How did you, I'm curious, the awakening and how that occurred for you, what that looked like, felt like, to the point. What I love about you now is you are so fully self-expressed. You know, I talk about your higher self, You-est You, like, it's fully out there, and it is so powerful. And so the bridge, how did you get from one to the other?
Well, first of all, I'll just mention, for those of you who are able to watch the screen, you may have seen the screen flash just now. That happens a lot with when I'm interacting with technology, as a way to underline or emphasize something that's being said now. And so you're feeling my field beyond hearing my words spoken. Some of you may be having physical sensations already. You might even be crying at this point and thinking, what is happening for me? And so the technology impacts is just, it's my multidimensional self expressing itself in a way to say, yes, there's a bigger presence here. So I just wanted to be sure and point that out. That wasn't just some random tech glitch. Actually, I've never seen my webcam do that. No. So again, this is just testament to how much of energy and your own higher collective selves are coming through my field right now to say, hello, time to wake up. I've got you. You can open your heart. It's safe to be who you are. It is not naive to live with an open heart. That's actually your superpower. And we need you more than ever to be doing that now. Okay, that's what spirit bombing sounds like. Now, the question was,
love it.
Oh yeah, my awakening. So my awakening felt like a series of huge cosmic 2x4s that were not fun. that I had no context for at the time. So my journey was a lot more painful with hindsight, I realized, than it needed to be. And that is why I ended up launching a lot of metaphysical coaching programs, is because, well, I was instructed to do that for my own inner guidance, but also because I realized people don't have to do this alone with no context. So my father became ill in 2008. He went into, we're going to beat this cancer mode. He had survived cancer 40 years before, Hodgkin's lymphoma, terminal diagnosis in his 20s. So we were all in that mode. And then one day I went over to his house for a visit. I had my little girl. She was about a year and a half, there on my hip and my arms. And I looked across the room at him. He was sitting in a chair. And it was like I got this direct energetic transmission that came down to like the right side of my face into my perception that said, he will not be staying. Your father will be dying. And it was a strange experience, Julie, because it wasn't a thought as much as it was a direct energetic transmission. And then it took over a knowing in my body. And I can remember my mind wanted to argue with it a little bit, because here we all are saying we're going to beat cancer. And yet here's information that just came in that is 180 the opposite of it. Yeah. Of course, I didn't tell anyone, but I just knew. I moved into knowing. Yeah. And I cleared my schedule. I spent a lot of time with my dad. And 6 months later, 5 days in the ICU, his childhood friend showed up behind his bed. And his childhood friend had died 6 months before. And I just knew that Gary was there. I could feel it. And I told my mom, Gary's here. He's come for dad. And I just went into this mode that I think today we might call it death doula. Mm-hmm. And I set up all the goodbyes, and I told, reassured my father it was okay to go. Thanked him for being my dad. I just knew what to do, held his hand. My mom held his other hand. And then I literally felt his spirit leave his body. And at the time I thought, whoa, it was like an energy rush. Maybe I thought adrenaline. But it wasn't, because what accompanied it was what you only hear people who've been through a near-death experience talk about. And my whole lifetime of memories with my dad flashed in front of my eyes, as real as can be. I mean, it's not like seeing on a screen. It's like you actually are reliving those memories of the feeling that you had, and the love and the warmth and everything. And it was, in hindsight, I realized it was my dad's parting gift to me. And then I kind of stumbled away from that experience, of course, in deep grief, because what actually caused my father's death was something called the widowmaker. It was a heart condition. None of us knew he had it. And ironically, it was the result of that experimental radiation treatment he had at MD Anderson all those years ago. It's classic textbook. Apparently now they saw the doses of radiation were too high and created this. So while he was battling lung cancer, we didn't know about this, and that's why his death felt very sudden and unexpected. And so we feel like I kind of stumbled home and went into deep grief, but my dad kept showing up. He'd show up in the car and talk to me. He'd show up late at night in my house and talk to me. And then others began showing up, and I just thought, oh my gosh, I've gone around the bend. Like, I must miss my dad so much. I've created this fantasy that he's talking to me. And so I just largely ignored all of it. On some level, if I'm really honest, Julie, yeah, I knew that it wasn't fantasy. I knew it was real, but I wasn't ready to accommodate that level of worldview shift. So I just carried on, kind of kept it to myself. And then I was hospitalized, not just once, but 3 times over the course of a couple of years. And ironically, now that we're in coronavirus, I was hospitalized for 3 days with swine flu, with H1N1, right? Talk about disruption. So there I was in my early 30s thinking, wait a minute, I was a 4-season athlete growing up. I rode crew in college, strong. I used to be able to squat 150 pounds. And so, I was like, what is going on with my life? And then this was all in a period of about 3 years as all this happened. And then the business that I had built deconstructed. And it was like the harder I worked on it, the faster it went down. With hindsight, of course, I see that wasn't what I'm on the planet for. And I learned some valuable things doing that work. but it was time to move on. So you can imagine, you put the whole picture together. It was a very brutal time in life. And I remember the turning point for me was at the end of that period and the collapse of my business. And I literally kind of fell down on my knees, just like, I surrender, I give up. Like, I clearly don't have the answers. My, good grades in school aren't going to cut it here. I don't know what to do anymore. And I turned it over and I just surrendered. I didn't know what I was surrendering to. And I'll be honest, it felt more like a defeat or a failure than it did the beginning that it actually was. But that is my story. And that is when I started to have interdimensional visitors show up telling me things like, hey, you have important tasks ahead of you. If you continue to ignore them or shirk them, you're going to continue to feel deeply unfulfilled. And I remember at the time thinking, well, that's great. Why don't you tell me what they are? Now I've learned that this doesn't just get handed up to us on a silver platter. Part of the mystery of it is to help us release our addiction to knowing, to the mental everything. And then it breaks us of that pattern and allows us to be much more available for something much bigger than, we could get caught up in an argument if everything is given to you in this mental way. And so it really is a process of surrender, deconstruct in the way that you would maybe renovate a space. You don't try to put all the new stuff on top of the old, right? What do we have to do? We have to take all that out and then envision the space differently. So that, is the story of my cosmic 2x4s. And I mean, it kept going. Spirit guides came after me and were relentless. They spirit bombed. I ended up doing a past life regression with a Stanford trained MD who ended up going into hypnotherapy. So I felt like I could trust her, right? Because I was still in the skeptic mode. I had spirit guides spirit bombing other things that I was going to, until I finally realized, wow, it's actually pretty insulting to ignore these friends and guides who are trying to help me, because I couldn't accommodate that worldview shift. Yeah. So the long and the short of it is it took a lot of hammering, chipping away at the identity and the mode of being that I had been in order for me to be available for something else. Does that sound familiar to anyone right now?
I'm like, are you kidding? Yeah, I love that the renovation. It's so true. You have to demolish first, the demolition. I just got that image of like the hatchet and so your business not working, the more you tried, it's like that was the demolition for you to be a flat like land of just, we're going to rebuild it. We're going to rebuild you.
And beautifully, I could only see it with hindsight, that business and what I've been doing enabled me to be that much more autonomous and independent in setting up the next iteration of my work, because I should tell you guys this right up front, it doesn't stop. We are constantly shifting and moving and evolving. And so it's really taught me to let go and release certain expectations, attachments, and plans much more quickly than I used to be able to do in order to make room for the new. Because I know spirit guide humor, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. It's up to you, right? I've done the hard way. I don't need to do it that way anymore.
Nope, no more suffering. Thank you very much. No more. So I can sometimes, I'm sure you'll get this, I can hear questions that come through, and I'm hearing, so when you see the spirit guide, or like maybe get into like, or the intergalactic being, for those that are like, what do you mean? There's probably some that are listening that are like, I know what you mean. I get like, I can see it in my mind's eye, and there are others that might be like, I actually cannot understand what you're saying because I have never seen it. So the two questions, what does that like look like, feel like for you? And do you believe we all have access to guides or to a multidimensional self?
Yes. Well, I'll start with the second question first and then circle back to it in more detail. Absolutely, yes, we are all multidimensional, and I'll circle back to that. In terms of what I see or feel, I'm going to focus on what I feel, because in my experience running a coaching program, metaphysical coaching program for the last 5 years, I've watched the comparison monster come up. And if people don't perceive in the same way they think that they should be able to see, I want to, disabuse people of this notion that if you can't see things, somehow you're less evolved. Energy is the purest form of communication. And so energetically perceiving, feeling, knowing, communicating is where it's at. And then beyond that, if you happen to see some colors, hear some ringing in your ears, get some telepathic downloads, eventually maybe see something, an apparition in your third eye, not in the physical realm, great, wonderful. But that's so not necessary to communicate. The communication is happening at the energetic level. And so we would call that probably claircognizance, just clear knowing. Clairsentient, clear feeling, clairaudient, clear hearing, clairvoyant, of course, clear seeing. But the claircognizance of just knowing through energy, that is absolutely the most important aspect of this. Because if you think about it, pure energy taking form, that's already some sort of, it's moving away from the energetics of pure source. So I just can't emphasize that enough. Now, there's probably some listeners who are like, I wish some of these apparitions would go away. I've had enough of them, right? You may be getting bombarded by this and you don't know who to talk to because we still have a fear of like, people are going to think I'm crazy. And so a huge piece of my role on this planet is to normalize the multidimensional self. And the multidimensional self and perception that you are, right? What have you ever stopped to think about what actually animates this physical body? I've been with 2 people now who have left their physical bodies behind. And I used to use terms like they died. Well, they carry on. They're still there. Their body died. Their body can no longer sustain itself because the life force that animated it is gone. But it's not gone completely. It shifted phases. And this is where, infants, children, young children still have the perception. They can see. There are a lot of children on the planet today who remember what their past lives were, what maybe even different star systems they've lived in. They can talk to grandma and grandpa, no problem. But are we listening to them? Are we giving them any credence, right? So in terms of our multidimensional self, there is this greater plasmic field of consciousness that is animating this human body. And it's creating a kind of a localized consciousness that is contracted. And as we get out of fear and we open back up our heart portal, not a cliche, not trite, the heart portal is this incredible access point to your multidimensional codex. And when you open that back up, and I say open back up because most of us had to close it to some degree or another. This place is a harsh reality, right? Think of some of your earliest memories of being rejected, criticized, judged, and getting that implicit message that somehow you're not okay. You can't be like that. So you got to shut that down. Maybe you're not enough or too much or whatever it was, right? Nobody that I've met on this planet didn't go through some level of heart shutting down and contraction in order to cope with reality and survive. Hands down, the number one thing I am guided to do when I work with people as an intergalactic shaman, so just like shamans here, I become a proxy for their field. I work with their guides, their higher self. If their heart chakra, if their heart portal is still closed and shut down, the number one thing we do is we open that back up. It's like opening not just a door, but just an incredible gateway back into your greater plasmic field of consciousness. And so all of a sudden, then you're able to access parts of yourself in star systems far, far away. There are other forms that this amazing plasmic field of consciousness is animating. Ultimately, we can connect back in with the collective of the one that we are. There are really no limits to this. And so it's a very, very different way to self-identify. So while I still identify like, yeah, I'm a woman in her 40s in human form and and I have days that feel very human like everyone else, there is a plurality of identity that I connect with almost 24/7. And a lot of the work that I do, and this is for everyone, your multidimensional self has this incredible ability to work in pre-matter states of consciousness. So it is working, orchestrating, coordinating things that you get to only appreciate once it collapses into physical form through manifestation here. And that's that incredible moment you've probably had of mass synchronicity, where you realize, well, there is a greater force at work here on my behalf. And so that is the multidimensional self, not readily or easily explained, because we as a species are just kind of coming back into this next evolutionary shift in consciousness and remembering so much more. Our scientific paradigm is best represented in the quantum physicists. They are looking at these questions. They themselves, this is new information I'm getting right now, as a result of looking into this line of inquiry, they are activating their own consciousness into a higher dimensional set of consciousness. So their ability to ask different questions, to measure different things is changing in real time. They are being impacted by their research, right? Very different worldview than I'm the observer, that's the observed. We know that the observer affects the outcome now, right? With a lot of that work. So that is kind of a long-winded explanation for something that's fairly straightforward, and that is an open heart center reconnects you to the all that is and the many different aspects of yourself. So that's why they're circling back now to say 100% permission to be the open-hearted, amazing being of love that you are, and you don't have to shut that down or somehow keep that hidden because it's some sort of liability. It's actually your superpower.
Okay, I'm gonna try to. So many questions, but the one I'm hearing right now is, okay, how do I do that? So how do I tap into the heart portal? How do I think that's a good place to start. What are the ways?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They're actually going to do an activation for everyone. So the first thing to keep in mind is self-awareness. That false personality construct is still operating under programmed will, right? I often will tell people like, oh, did you think you really made that free will choice? You really purchased that car or that house because that was your free will? It wasn't impacted or informed by the way you were raised, what you believe you deserve or don't deserve, right? We could go on and on about that. What we're really trying to get into is true free will. And you can't really do that if you don't know what you're thinking and feeling. So all the mindfulness practitioners and teachers, this is bedrock for what we're doing here. Increasing self-awareness, watching what you're thinking and feeling. Most times you don't catch the thought, you catch the feeling, and you feel like, ugh. And then you have to go, wait a minute, what did I just think? It's almost like you have to reverse engineer. Then you catch it, and then you start really working with that material. Whose thought is that? Oh my gosh, that's my mom's, that's my grandma's, that's not even mine. I inherited that, right? So huge piece of it. The other massive piece that isn't as mainstream yet is a daily psychic hygiene practice, right? We brush our teeth, we wash our hair, but are you clearing out your energy centers? Most people don't even know they have energy centers called the chakras, and let alone what is in their field and impacting them at any given time. So we'll just lump sum that into one category called negative intrusions and entanglements. Super important to get your field clear of all of that, because here are the benefits. You get out of indecision limbo. You have way more clarity, right? There's that clear cognizance of just knowing, right? Energy doesn't lie, right? You break up with hierarchy, and you get out of the whole comparison competition thing, right? Able to come back into unity, and you move into the totally different set of vibrational coordinates, right? And this is that zone of beautiful instant manifestation. So those are some points to emphasize: mindfulness, daily psychic hygiene, and then even I've worked with a lot of Wayshowers on the planet, a lot of people who are already connected to multidimensional reality, and then sometimes you just need help. You just need help from a field like mine that specializes in opening these things up. So, yep, I got a green light. So what I would encourage listeners to do is just take a moment and just quiet yourself down, close your eyes and focus on your breath. And as you breathe in through a closed mouth and then just through the nose, if you can't really get yourself to relax, and as you breathe in, you're going to open and expand that belly just like a baby breathes. They don't worry about their tummy, right? And then drop out of your mind into your heart center. Focus on your heart, the center of your chest, on that heart portal. And as you exhale, try to get into the energy of letting go and releasing. And on the inhale, see if you can't open up and see the heart center there is growing in white light and getting larger. And this is where my field's connecting in with yours. And just keep breathing in that way where you open, bring in the light, and on the exhale, let go. Okay. Beautiful. This is really good for anxiety, by the way. Okay, so my field did its work. So some of you may have felt the heat rush that I did. You may have vertigo. There was a huge energetic release that just happened. For some of you, as you got close to opening up your heart center, you moved away from that because of the pain that you didn't want to feel. If that happened for you, circle back again and again until you're able to move through that resistance and take advantage of what my field just did in your heart center. So I can always tell Julie when there's a big release for people because I'll get like a heat flush, right? And I felt that go right up through my face. So there's that as well, right? So it's a very simple thing. Open your heart center, right? It's not rocket science, but it's not necessarily easy to do. The other reason, and this is why I think some of what I was feeling of the resistance in the field, people are like, whoa, I don't know about opening up to this. There's all sorts of things that stand in our way. There's the fear of being too weird. There's the fear of the taboo, right? A lot of religious dogma, don't open these doors, that's dangerous. I could talk at length about why there's a lot of that distortion in religious dogma. Because the truth is, the negative intrusions are already there, they're already impacting us. And it would really behoove us to get some tools in terms of opening these doors and taking our psychic hygiene seriously and regaining our sovereignty and autonomy, because hardly any human has full autonomy. There's a lot of forces that I won't even get into that, just love to get into shenanigans and play in people's fields. So I guess the bottom line is it's already happening. Right. So better to become aware and take control of it for yourself. The other big fear I see is people, the fear of being wrong, right? Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, I can't trust these. These aren't tangible experiences. The fear of being proven wrong, right? That's the skeptic program. Like, well, what do you mean if my whole life's been a lie, right?
Totally.
Yeah, there's just, and then just finally the xenophobia. Okay, I'm co-opting that word for my movement. And it's the fear of the unknown or uncertainty. And that is a major prejudice or bias that we inherited without even really voluntarily opting into that ourselves. So I encourage people through direct experience. I'm not a guru. It's not about dogma, another set of truths. It's about being able to clear out the distortion in your own field, regain sovereignty, and then discovering your truth for yourself through direct experience. So there, you can see there's a lot stacked against us. And each decade I find that you go back, there's even more cultural conditioning that a person has to peel through. The spirit bombing, it's coming through my heart center for everyone right now. It is kind of like that fierce warrior. So many of your listeners are these love warriors, is what they're calling themselves. And they just have been a little bit reticent or apologetic about really owning that. Well, guess what, folks? It's time to really own it now. The moment has come. And all of the disruption I've lived through, and probably many others have lived through, was in order to get ourselves into a position to be able to assist, not save anyone, but assist, right? With what is called in the light working community, ascension, and then beyond, right? So there are descension cycles of exploration of form, consciousness and form, into density, distortion, contraction, fear, all the lower emotional states, and then the ascension cycle moving back towards source and the one, right? So there's no right or wrong here. There's exploration. So if you can approach this journey with the heart of an explorer and maybe a little the courage of an explorer, that curiosity, right? Instead of reaching for labeling, identifying, being able to lock down reality. We want to be doing the opposite, right? Entering the mystery, entering the unknown with a curious heart, right? Little twinkle in the eye. Keep it light, keep it fun. And we just don't have all the answers. And that's anathema to the way we grew up, isn't it? Like, I should know. I like always sat in the front of the class. I was like teacher's pet. I was like, I know the answer.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but we don't always have to know the answer, right? We don't have to. And so you create space for something else to come through. And the other big thing that's coming through is it's a consciousness trap of polarity.
Mm-hmm.
So sides, right? We see this play itself out from sports teams to politics to you name it, right? It's a form of polarized tribalism. And this is where we really have to check ourselves and say, wait a minute, what have I allowed myself to get sucked into? The right and wrong, right? The Sufi poet Rumi has that beautiful poem, out beyond right doing and wrong doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. That field is the 0 point.
Yeah.
This is the place of pure potential. And there's no judgment here. There's no polarity. There's only the one. And so being able to embody that, what they're showing me for everyone to understand who you have these naturally open hearts is to just crack them wide open now. And sometimes that happens through heartbreak, like it did for me with the passing of my father. Or whatever tragic event. It's an opening though, right? You're breaking back open and then bringing through the embodiment of the 0 point. You're literally a field of pure potential walking around. That's what I mean. I'm always talking about, let's revolutionize what it means to be human. Let's revolutionize the human experience. And that's how that happens. So I think by now, most listeners are starting to realize, oh, right, I got to get out of my head.
Yes.
And it is, like you said, how do you do that? In the early days for me, it literally felt like, oh my gosh, I think I can do it. But it really took concentrated effort to move out of my mind and into a multi-sensory perception that came from my body, not just my mental cerebral space.
Woo. There is so much gold in this. I think it's interesting as you're speaking, because we're in a time, obviously, right now, with this pandemic going on, what's been coming through, and I'm curious for you, you brought up Ascension, and would love to talk about that and the energy of that. What's been coming up for me is, if you choose to use this time, for me, in a lot of ways, obviously there's a lot of tragedy and sadness. There's also a lot of space and slowing down. I feel like it's been a huge healing for my nervous system, and also like to focus on my heart center and doing life there. And I got to tell you, it's felt, I've been practicing for a long time, but I'll tell you, this last few week or two, really powerful what we can access there. And I'm just, how that plays into maybe defining what the Ascension Energy. And I have a feeling people are like, what is Ascension? I've kind of heard of it. How do I flow with it versus getting knocked down by the wave that, we were talking about this before we got on air about the energy being strong. Like, I was nauseous yesterday. I had no idea why. And I think it's connected to this high frequency energy.
Absolutely. So Ascension Symptoms, think elevation sickness. Okay. When you raise your frequency, everything's energy, including this bioenergy form that we're in. So when we raise our frequency, which is happening for everyone on the planet right now, whether they're trying to or not, you go through an etheric detox. So people who, I work with often will experience nausea, vertigo, that dizziness feeling, everything you kind of associate with going up in elevation, right? Because that's exactly what we're doing, is we're going up in vibrational frequency or coordinates. And then it takes your body a while to adjust to that. Sometimes we'll get sick and we'll purge, like a sore throat, and things will be moving out of the throat chakra. There's a lot of undigested emotions that we have that you're feeling. I think that's a lot of the nausea as we go through this. The beautiful thing is that if you allow yourself to go through this without resisting all of these symptoms, and you just take care of yourself, you sleep more than you need to, maybe. Some people experience headaches, tingling in the body, temporary hives or rashes of breakouts as the skin releases and purges. I'm trying to think of all of them. So if somebody's like, but they didn't mention mine, it's like, there's a huge one of feeling, and I think a lot of people are experiencing this right now. When we get really excited to move into a higher vibration and a more magical way of life, but what we don't realize is we're having to release and let go of who we were. And there's a real loss grief process associated with this. So you may be experiencing some profound sadness and not understanding what that's about, right? Now that the whole collective has moved into deconstruction and disruption, even for people like myself that have been on this journey for a long time and working in these energies, there is a palpable shift happening. So Ascension symptoms are very real. Give yourself plenty of time, drink lots of water, obviously try to eat well, try to follow what your body needs and wants without overlaying some other regime or something that you think you should be doing. Really let your body lead the way during this time. And so, it's just important to know, kind of demystify it. When you're moving to different vibrational coordinates,
which we're doing now, right? We're doing that.
While in physical, right? People do this when they leave their bodies, when their bodies die. That's what we call heaven. And we're creating heaven on earth through the shift in our plasma fields of consciousness, i.e. these bodies. So people think like, oh, externally, like, well, somehow this will happen. Your personal transformation of healing and this etheric shift that you're going through is actually creating the foundation, the substance, the fabric of reality in which we are creating a totally different kind of civilization. And you see, it's not external to us. It is us.
Wow.
Right? So as much as I love the Arcturians, Pleiadians, Sirians, Andromedans, and all the other off-planet galactic, spiritually advanced galactic civilizations I channel and connect with and that are part of my field, humanity is doing this for itself.
Wow. What do so for those who are tuning in, they might be like, I don't really know these other galactic entities. Maybe a quick minute on, I'm just hearing for someone who's like, wait, what are the Pleiadians and the Lyrians and the Sirians? Like, what is that? And I'm curious, where are they in helping humanity, or what is their role in this ascension? Well, you also talked about the disruption and the deconstruction, but how do they feel, or what's their take on this and their involvement? Because I think that's good to know.
Yeah, well, I coined this phrase for a lot of us here who realize that we hail from different star systems, and we are coming in with that old soul knowledge, that kind of been here, done this, and it's the intergalactic Peace Corps. So again, to try to normalize this for people, it's the concept of certain nations helping other nations. I mean, look, it's happening right now, right? I just read that Russia's sending a whole bunch of medical supplies to the US right now, but we didn't see that coming 5 years ago, right? In our old polarized states of consciousness. So we're no stranger to the concept of this, tech exchange and transfer and developmental assistance. So I would encourage everyone to think of it in those terms. Now, I only speak from my own personal direct experience, and my direct experience with these different systems and these beings is working with my own different aspects. So I have an aspect of me that is a Lyran being, right? It has humanoid form, but it doesn't quite look human, right? Same for Arcturian. I have an Arcturian aspect, and on and on and on, right? And I have channeled other people's aspects that will come in and do what's called a galactivation. And they basically take their beautiful wisdom abilities and they bring them into this person's field so that they have those perspectives, abilities, healing abilities, light technology, vibrational healing technology, things that we're just beginning to remember, if you will, or discover, kind of depending on your perspective, here in this planetary system. So I am consistently in a pretty high set of vibrational coordinates. So I am working with benevolent, unity-based collectives that have telepathic abilities, teletransportation abilities, etc. And they are very much in support of humanity making its own way. As you might imagine, law of opposites, there's malevolent beings as well, and forces. You go high enough in your dimensional perspective, however, and this is all just the one playing out an interesting drama of light and dark. So I am very quick to help people pull out of, light's going to win and dark will be vanquished. That's like saying I cut off my right foot so that my left foot would be avenged. I mean, it doesn't make any sense when you get to a certain level of consciousness, right? Yeah. And that perspective. And so while there are different dramas playing themselves out in different dimensional levels of consciousness, what's happening here on Earth right now for everyone is that we're all very interested in coming back into unity, right? And collapsing a lot of the separation consciousness and the divide. So it was fun in my early days. I felt like every few months I was meeting another one of my aspects. I had a mantid aspect show up and I thought, whoa, bug people, I don't know if I can handle this, And then I realized, yeah, but that's just prejudice, isn't it? That's just me saying, wait a minute, grew up thinking insects are lower down on the life form. So I'll share what my mantid aspect came in to remind me. There are two types of beings in the multiverse, right? I should have prefaced all of this with saying the multiverse is a really big place. In fact, there are multiple different kinds of universes and parallel realities, right? I mean, you want to pull the accordion apart. We're not the only show in town. Let me put it that way, right? Yeah. And I will admit I had to come out of my own kind of arrogant ignorance, skeptic programming to be able to open up to a lot of these experiences. So I will definitely own that. I was, I look back now with a lot more humility, like, uh-oh, I didn't know what I was talking about. So there are two types of beings in the multiverse. Type, what did he call them? He called them type 1 and type 2. No, he called them sentient and non-sentient. And it's easy as a sentient being, right? Warm-blooded mammalian feeling, to judge non-sentience as somehow scary, etc. And this is where our discernment of being able to read an electromagnetic field or signature comes into play. Yeah. This goes back to the importance of daily psychic hygiene, to really have a clear field so that you can discern for yourself, is this well-intentioned, malintentioned, neutral? What am I dealing with? Because as my mantid aspect showed me, you can have something that looks beautiful, maybe takes the form of a being that we would associate with love and light, but you can read the energy. That is not what's there. So this comes back to humanity really reclaiming its sovereignty, its autonomy, its programming, clearing all of that out to move into much more of a free will state of consciousness. So while tempting to think, our more advanced brothers and sisters will come in here and save us, it's really an inside job. It's not to say we can't rely on them and reach out to them. So what I'm getting right now is you have a lot, not surprising, you have a lot of people who follow you who are very connected to the Syrian system. And so what I would encourage people to do if they want to start exploring this is to go into meditation and ask for your Syrian aspect. You could think of it as a guide to step forward and begin to work with you, right? Because you are putting out the call at this point. So they're not overriding your free will. You could also picture yourself in an ocean. A lot of the Syrian planets are water-based planets.
Right. This is not Syria. I want to make sure people know we're not talking Syria, the country in the in planet Earth. I was like
Sirius A, Sirius B. I know. I totally forget. I'm like,
no. I just heard like, what? I'm not Syrian. I'm not.
Non-terrestrial vocabulary. Interestingly, in 2002, I spent a study abroad studying gender and development in the West African country of Mali. We made a trip where we went to visit the Dogon people. These are they used to live in the cliff, kind of like the Anasazi used to. They're cliff dwellers. Their villages are at the base of the cliffs. They know their origin story, and they say they are from the planet Sirius B.
Wow.
Gets interesting, right?
Wow.
So a lot of what we're doing is we're going full circle. You know, my daughter got pulled out of school by her spirit guides, 6 weeks ago, and put in shaman school. And it's been fascinating to see what I channel her guides and what they're teaching her.
Wow.
And a lot of it is coming back into this much more earth connected based living, First Nation, Indigenous people. You know, most of us grew up with the bias, anthropological bias,
right,
of primitive. Oh, let me tell you about some of the technology these people have. Okay, it's extremely advanced consciousness technology.
mm-hmm.
So we're coming full circle.
Yeah.
Learning a little humility.
Yeah. You were talking about the ocean, because I wanted to make sure, I'm like, you're not talking about Syria, which you might be from Syria, and that's fine, but we're talking about like another planetary
planet. That's a series of planets. These systems, the Lyran system, the Pleiadian system, obviously, and the Andromeda galaxy, enormous, right? And so what I encourage people to see, a lot of people will try to get like, well, what is a Syrian? What is a Pleiadian? I would encourage people to just let that line of questioning go completely and connect in with your heart portal and ask to connect with an aspect of you that is in one of those systems. You'll learn way more through direct experience that way than, again, like textbook type learning of external inputs, right? This is inner tech transfer.
Love it.
Yeah.
I love
But
it.
yes, Sirius, Sirius, different part of the galaxy and part of this beautiful multiverse that we're in.
And it had ocean. So what you were saying, because I loved what you were saying, this actually was something that helped me to imagine. You were about to say, and I totally interrupted you, but you're maybe in the sea or
right. So a lot of these planets are more water based, and I connect with a lot of Syrian starseeds on this planet. You know, think of yourself as a volunteer taking on human form, who have a Syrian aspect that is, let's say, cetacean. It's usually a dolphin. And not necessarily like a dolphin just on this planet, although the dolphin collective, the whale collective here are amazing energy keepers, and you can certainly connect with them anytime. Highly recommend, if you can get in the water near wild dolphins, you don't have to be right up next to them, just in their field, in their presence. It is amazing the kind of healing they can convey because they're connecting into more of a 6-dimensional consciousness. So that's what we're talking about. They're in a different phase, which simply means different vibrational coordinates. So we look at how can a being disappear right in front of your eyes? They're shifting their vibrational coordinates to where your physical eyes can't perceive them, but your pineal gland, your third eye, actually has rods and cones and receptors just like regular eyes do, but they're processing information from a different dimension. So there is kind of a logical explanation if you define logic as operating on a set of basic truths, which different dimensions have different sets of truths. So, you know, I won't put down logic completely. It's just what set of premises or truths, you know, assume or underlie the logic that you're using.
That was really well said. Yeah, it's almost like I don't know who said this, but the way you're thinking, it can't get you to that next space. You almost have to like just completely drop down. What I found, and I think what you're saying is feel into it, and then there's a bit of just letting go and trusting whatever emerges. I know I've had
absolutely. When if you watch me when I go to get information, I'm usually, if I really have to go there beyond, right? Let's say to connect with my Arcturian aspect, I drop out of my mind, I close my eyes, I go into my heart, I stop focusing on this physical world, and I connect into a different frequency. Got the line of connection, and then it comes through that it is a shift out of, right? All those thoughts, right? The hamster wheel of thoughts, slowing everything down, and then and I want to be clear that, you don't have to go be a hermit and live in a cave somewhere to pull this off. Most people, however, do have to go through a period of retreat from the world of form, right? I call it caving up. And you'll go through this several times where you can't meet the world where it's currently at because you are changing so profoundly. Give yourself the time and space to retreat as much as you need. And then you'll find when you're ready to come back out, you've gone through an inner alchemy and you are able to perceive the world and meet it at such a different level. One big thing for empaths, huge when I realized this. We don't know we're empaths. We're getting bombarded by people. We're trying to make people happy because we really do genuinely care about people. We want them to feel good. We end up taking on too much. And then you can end up avoiding crowds, not wanting to be around others because it's too much. So what I advise people to do is to learn how to open that heart center. And then as you breathe in, imagine it expanding to 50 feet across. And then you are in your own, it's like a huge bubble of light, and you're in your own sovereignty. And then that field is impacting everything around it and transmuting negative energies on the fly, rather than you feeling like the world is crushing in upon you. Try it on a walk sometime. About 50 feet out is usually when you can feel someone else's heart center. They're pumping that electromagnetic field all around them, the electrical field. And about 50 feet out is when I notice, like I'll literally, my heart will contract because I'm connected to them and I can feel what their heart feels like.
Yeah.
And I used to think I had anxiety or I was socially nervous or I didn't know what it was. That's what it is. That's the exact mechanics of what's happening. So if you are emanating a high frequency pulse, that will just transmute everything around you and you can handle so much more. And frankly, we need you all to handle so much more right now, right?
Yeah.
And be the transformers of a lot of fear and chaos and distortion on the planet. And when you do that, what's amazing is it clears it, not just for you, but for everyone else. So I used to do clearings or field clearings, and I could tell you that there's just so much going on in the average person's energy field that they're not even aware of. And when they're freed from that, again, clear knowing, you feel so much lighter. You don't have these strange, persistent thoughts coming in. Without getting into it too much, there's just a lot of that permission to be really open-hearted, but clear open-hearted, right? You really clear that out.
Yeah, I love that. You had mentioned this earlier. I didn't know if maybe we could do a quick one, this psychic hygiene, because I want to give, this is exactly, I mean, I love you and what you're saying, and part of it is to help everyone listening and tuning in to learn how to be this type of open-hearted, because we can heal not just ourselves, but I know exactly what you're saying. I've had the experience, I don't know, Asia, I don't want to get too off track. I've been, let's say, there's like Whole Foods, and then there are some of the supermarkets that are lower frequency, which I stay out of. Usually the lighting's very bad, and it's a different, nothing wrong, but energetics. And I was in one of those, I don't know, months ago, and I could feel a lot of people there are not in their heart. And what I noticed was I felt like I had my heart energy out. I almost felt like I was invisible, like they could not detect my energy. This might sound weird and it's a little vulnerable because I don't really say these things out loud usually, but literally people couldn't see me there. Whereas if I'm in a space where I find there's a higher vibration, it's very different. And I'm curious, does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So in all these years of working with people, I've heard that over and over again, like people at work are ignoring me. I'm like, no, they're not ignoring you. They can't see you anymore. This is phase transition. You've shifted into higher frequency, higher dimensional coordinates, and they're in much lower. And if the gap is wide enough, they are literally not able to perceive your presence. Now, if you bumped into them and really made your presence known, they would. But again, it's kind of that frequency bandwidth that someone's operating. It's like changing the radio station.
Yeah.
Catch a different signal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that absolutely is a phenomenon. Yeah.
It's fascinating as you get deeper into this. And I think what I love about you said about that opening up, or for those listening, imagine just kind of like opening up your chest and just that frequency 50 feet above and around. I love what you said. And just from the little bit, I interviewed the founders of Heart Math, and we talked about the electromagnetic field of your heart. This is for those that are still and I can get there, the logic, science, like I want to understand, it's a thing. It's real. It's legit.
It is. It absolutely is.
Yeah.
And there was something that wanted to come in for everyone listening, and that is why bother with your multidimensional self and multidimensional reality? Because the end game for this is the end and cessation of war on this planet.
Mm.
Period.
Yeah.
Now, see, most of us can't even fathom that. That is possible within our lifetimes.
Yeah.
If we do our inner work.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to hand it to us.
Yeah.
So we have to really claim that.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm so with you. This is why I do everything I'm doing. I really believe that. And we could do that in our lifetime. I really do believe that.
Yes, yeah. We deserve, this is the message humanity told me they're ready to hear. I went on a vision quest in the desert in Arizona last October. Love is our birthright, not fear. That's what you all told me you're ready to remember. And you see, there is a certain amount of choice involved there.
Yeah.
And it's a commitment.
Yeah.
And it's a discipline to a certain extent to choose love over fear over and over and over again until it becomes our new normal. And then you reset the fabric of reality. Enough of us do that, and it changes the whole bioenergetic environment. What the Arcturians living in a 5D and above civilization have told me is that even just two people having a conversation like this in higher vibrational coordinates is beginning to impact the rest of the field. And what they show me is like this beautiful kind of golden light that begins to permeate the field. And so I don't know about you or your listeners, but I used to fall into the consciousness trap of despair. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just hopeless. My God, this like Planet of the Apes, like, what am I doing here? Just get me off. Like, yeah. And we can't afford to do that anymore. And we can't afford to self-marginalize and say, I'm not like other people and they won't get me. And this is too weird. This is too outer margin. Yeah. Right? Because what's at stake is the future of our children, and the children, the Starseed Children's Collective, of course, wants to be sure and come through and remind everyone to be in the heart of their childlike self. This is another way to access what we forgot how to do, which is to play and to be in the energy of innocence, curiosity, the magic, the wonder, and the present moment, which is the only place that we create from, truly. Otherwise, you know, if you're in the future planning out, it's really, you're just creating from the past. It's nothing really new because it's not spontaneously emerging from the present moment, 0 point field.
0 point, right, back to what you said.
So, you know, I mean, obviously, Julie, we can geek out on all the multidimensional metaphysics, and it's super fun, and I have crazy, amazing stories, and it's so fun. But the bottom line is, the why is because we deserve to live within our higher dimensional potential, and so do our children, and so do our grandchildren, and all the way down the rest of the line. Yeah. Right? Change is, what I'm hearing now is change is not only possible in your lifetime, it's probable, because the future, the reason why psychics are able to predict the future is they're looking at a set of probabilities. Yeah. And wherever the human collective is focused, that's what they're creating. So there are many, many, many Wayshowers right now, myself included, who have felt like we just got called up big time because humanity has disrupted itself. It's ready, it's available. And instead of letting this go down into crisis and fear, there are millions of Wayshowers planet-wide. I'm sure we're talking to some of them right now who have realized this is my time. This is why I came. Whether it's a conversation in the grocery store line where you help shift somebody's perspective or just provide a loving field, or you've got, you know, a YouTube platform of 3 million people, all of it, there's equanimity. All of it is equal. So there's no more, oh, I'm small and I can't really impact much. Nothing could be further from the truth because we're all connected. So what one of us does, it informs everyone else.
So beautiful. I was going to ask if there was a message to leave everyone with, and I feel like that could have been it. Like that's really powerful. You know, it's coming to me also just to remind all of us that, you know, our heart, this is natural. So that's one of the things I've gotten is it's when you take out the movie scenes and the thoughts about what is intergalactical and you just go back to you have a heart and all the traditions, all the ancient wisdom, all of it goes into what you said, it's not trite, like our heart shows the way. When you drop into this natural, that's what's helped me a lot is it's like, it's part of you. We all have that. And I think everyone, if you really sat down and you did some reflecting, it's like, that feeling when you feel there. And I can say it just feels so much better to live there. And it's a practice. I mean, I'm just, as you said, we choose it over and over. And I love what you said. It's about, we all can do this. That's why I'm grateful you're talking about this. Everyone listening can do this. You have to practice because we've been programmed. We've just been programmed. So you got to practice so that it becomes, you choose love and that's automatic.
Absolutely. I mean, think of the number of times as an adult where you had a natural inclination to show, share, give love, and then reined it in. And maybe they'll think that's too much, too weird, whatever. And we weren't like that as children. It was much more easily given, right? And received. Oh, we could spend an hour talking about how a lot of people are blocked on receiving. So we've been conditioned to give, but when it comes back our way, we block, and that blocks flow. So that's another big reason why people feel blocked and they can't perceive things is, there's some kind of martyr programming going on, self-sacrifice. There's so much in the world's, all of them, religious traditions that have been co-opted. So if you go back to the mystery, the mystical roots of everything, you'll start to find the thread of, kind of what we're talking about here. And then I didn't mean to mention that, people looking for help with psychic hygiene, right? I realize that's not maybe super available still. I have free meditation on my website. And we hear from people every week about how it's reducing their anxiety. They can sleep better, right? All those tangible. Yeah. So that's just go pick that up and start using it. You'll feel so much better. And again, it'll take you a good probably 30 days to get to the point where you don't need the video. You just you're like, oh, yep. Oh, I got something in the third chakra. Something got in there. And you use the breath to blow it all out. So yeah, I made a very specific concrete tool just for that because, I don't know about you, but I didn't learn that in kindergarten or first grade.
I did not learn that in any of my schooling. And I'm sure both of us, we did a lot of schooling and that was not there. That was not there. Where can we find you, Asia, and the psychic hygiene meditation, which, by the way, I've listened to a few times. I had it on earlier today before to get ready.
Oh, right on. Yeah. It's multidimensionalu.com. Yep. And the letter U. So multidimensional, the letter U.
Right. For university. Amazing. At some point, I'm just letting everyone know, and please write in, let us know questions that you have for Asia, for us, for the show, to talk more about, because I'm already hearing we will have to do a part 2 and get more into, of course, I'm like, we got to get into the dimensions and the star systems and what star seeds are, and just this has been so fun. What's fun for me, I think we said this earlier when I met you too, it's like you naturally bring out that like 8-9-year-old girl, that fun play is just like, oh my God, this is so fun. Like you just,
it can be fun, right? It doesn't have to be
really
serious.
Right.
Pun intended, maybe.
Right,
but
right. Serious.
The other thing, because I can feel a lot of people wanting to do, like, what more can I do, especially right now, being just
totally heard that. Yes. Yeah.
And so if you want to experience kind of what we're talking about, doing multidimensional work, I am leading a huge online meditation on Earth Day this April 22nd.
Perfect.
And that's on the website as well. It's multidimensionalu.com/Earth Day, all one word. And yeah, these aren't just meditations that we do. And it'll benefit you, it'll benefit the planet, it'll benefit all of the human collective. A lot of the work that we do in these kinds of settings is about shifting the energy so that more and more people can access their own direct, innate, multidimensional intelligence. And I don't know, just create heaven on earth and a totally different civilization that,
just that. Oh my gosh. I'm going to make sure. So everyone, although I don't think most are driving. I used to get worried when I would do these, like, if you're listening and driving, don't take notes, but I actually think most of you are probably not driving right now. So you can take notes, but I also will have all this in our show notes so people can find you. And find the Earth Day meditation, and we'll make sure to share this right before that so everyone can tune in. And I got to say, I mean, your energy, your personality, persona, your who you are and what you're here to do in the world as a I feel like a light bringer or the light bringer for the Wayshowers. I mean, you're such a gift. And I mean, right away, I was like, this feels like, I mean, just an old friend from way back. I love who you are. And I'm just so great. Thank goodness you awoke and chose to step into this. I mean, that's the thing when we step into your higher self, it's like there's healing we don't even understand. There's purpose we don't even understand. So thank you for who you are.
Thank you for saying that, Julie. Yeah, it took me a long time to turn the corner on accepting being on Earth. And now that I'm here, woohoo, you can't get me off.
Exactly. Well, thank God. Thank goodness. I'm telling you, you are a gem. Thank you so, so much. This has been awesome. And everyone, write in the questions. Let us know your thoughts. Seriously. And I just can't imagine why we wouldn't do a part two.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Julie.